you know? It's a lot of money. I get it. I can feel you judging me. That's palpable. But hey, I never said I was the hero of this story.
So, Joe Biden, baby. Talk about in the gold. Talk about getting the old gold. Joe Biden, we now have the official check. We have the image of the check. We can actually put it up on screen. Now, you could recall that the entire Democrat ecosystem was screaming at the top of their lungs. Proof! You have no direct evidence. No direct evidence that Joe Biden ever got paid from his dirty business dealings. And here, ladies and gentlemen, we have Joe Biden getting cash money. Also, interestingly enough, Joe Biden getting fat cash money in the midst of all these interesting little phone calls that Hunter Biden had with the Chinese, demanding payment, leveraging payment. You remember those. We'll get to it in the show. But we are going to take a little tiptoe through the primrose path of history here because we have a deep and abiding knowledge of the things that Joe Biden has said and the things that Joe Biden has done. We would like to bring your attention to the special moment in history, a moment that will be minted in the Smithsonian as the official look fat moment. Never in presidential politics has ever a presidential candidate looked at a voter and said, look fat, to a, well, rotund voter. Hey man, I'm from Iowa. People are units in Iowa. And back in the day when Joe Biden was cruising towards a pathetic 5th place finish in Iowa, and then cruising to a pathetic 4th place finish in New Hampshire, and was dead on arrival before Barack Obama came in and the entire corporate Marxist infrastructure of the Democrat Party said, we want Bernie Sanders, but hold up, the American people don't. Before they came in and actually saved the diseased and failed policies and campaign of Joe, well, there were special moments like this, where Joe Biden was asked about the money flowing into his family's coffers by Democrats. There's absolutely no indication that this man is not a Democrat. And Joe Biden looked at this mustachioed, sweet, portly Iowan eating his Casey's pizza. If you know, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, a little pizza rotator under a little hot lamp inside of Casey's in Iowa, a favorite of the Midwest. And this man just brought some honest critiques to Joe Biden's face. And how did Joe Biden react?
Get access to the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is. So
you're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has heard that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's do this run. Let's do whatever you want to do. My son has done everything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it. Now,
I didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
That's what I read here on MSNBC.
Oh, we don't hear that on MSNBC. We did not hear that at all. What you heard? Look. Okay, I'm not going to get in there with you, man.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do, but look, here's the deal.
What's the physiognomy of that clip? Who's the one who is clearly hiding something there? You don't have to be a body language expert or a positive psychologist to be able to dissect precisely who is the guilty party there. All human beings have kind of the same reaction when we're under stress, when we're hiding something, when you're withholding something. That's why they can do lie detector tests. That's why the people who do interrogations it's pretty obvious when someone's lying. You can see the pupil dilation. You can see the increase in the heart rate. You can see the blood pressure. You can see the little needle go on the lie detector test. That's what that is. The reason the lie detector test exists is because we all have sort of a same fight or flight reaction to being under immense stress. And that's what you see with Joe Biden there. He was asked dead to rights. That guy was factual. That voter in Iowa, good on you, man. I'm going to find that guy. I didn't do an interview with that guy. Where is that guy? Where is Look Fat? Where is Look Fat these days? Is he doing push-up competitions? Joe Biden challenged him. Like, what kind of man are you, Joe Biden? What kind of man is Joe Biden? Challenges the guy, calls him fat, and then challenges him to a push-up competition. Guy should have dropped down and seen how many push-ups Joe Biden could do. That would have been amazing. Okay, sure, here you go, Joe. That would have been amazing. Who's guilty there? Joe Biden screaming at the voters, losing his temper, calling them fat, yelling. Joe Biden's guilty. It's like, it's so demonstrable. It's so obvious. It's so empirical. And now we have the evidence. And now, of course, we also have the evidence of Joe Biden lying. Because you'll recall that after the Marxist corporate Democrat Party swooped in like one of those claw machines, right? And went and zipped up and saved Joe Biden. Here's Joe Biden, like at the very bottom of the barrel, and they come in and they get in the claw. They save Joe Biden. They grab him, and he's just like squeaking, calling people fat, challenging them in pickup competitions. They finally are able, they do all the polls. They figure out that everyone else is going to lose to Donald Trump, no matter how many viruses they release on us. And they say, okay, fine. We're going to use Biden. We're going to prop him up on stage. And Joe, all you need to do is just don't tell any demonstrable lies. Okay? And then this happened.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return.
So, Joe Biden lied. Now, of course, this is not going to come as a shocker to you, but it is a very important thing to establish that Joe Biden has consistently, regularly, and often lied to the American people. And were it not for the chaos happening in the House right now, well, we would be having massive impeachment inquiry conversations this week. Now, they have had to be delayed because committee work is delayed. And thank God this committee work was not delayed. Oversight Committee tweeted late on Friday, we found $200,000 direct payment to Joe Biden. The Oversight Committee then linking the image of that check and then linking the direct payment. So how this worked was AmeriCorps Health LLC paid James Biden, and James Biden passed that earning directly to Joe. And you can see there in the form of the check. Man, never pay in check. Who was it that paid in check? Jesse Smollett? Yeah. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, James Comer announced this, again, late on Friday, couldn't get to it. So here we go. They've been mewling and begging and sweatily, like Dan Goldman sweating, being like, there's no direct evidence. Well, here you go, buckaroo. Here's what Comer has to say about it.
Fox News alert. House Oversight has been digging into the Biden family's personal and business records. And look what they found. It's a check from Jimmy the Chin, Joe Biden's brother, to Biden for $200,000. Here's what happened. Jimmy shook down a failing American medical company, said he could use his last name to get big investments from the Middle East, selling the Biden brand. So Jimmy promises a company money from the Middle East, gets $200,000, and then sends the $200,000 to his brother Joe the same day. Now, the White House says Jimmy was just repaying a loan that Joe gave him. So Joe Biden, on a taxpayer salary his whole life, is loaning his brother $200,000? who's got multi-million-dollar houses and works in the private sector? Doesn't make any sense.
Jesse can barely contain himself. He is laughing so hard at these hysterical schemes of the Jacques Clouseaus of money laundering. So James Comer coming up with his big announcement. Sorry, I teased that as the Comer clip. I was getting ahead of myself. James Comer teasing this, saying, whoa, guys, like, I come from the banking industry. You don't get the payment and then on the same day wire transfer the same amount of money to Joe Biden. By the way, we've seen this before. Remember when the deal fell apart with the Chinese, the exact same amount of rent that they were paying for an office with Joe, that Joe and Jill both had keys to in the fancy House of Sweden in Washington, D.C., that same amount was paid in rent to Joe Biden by Hunter Biden. This is a trend where the Biden family gets massive amounts of cash and then they deposit literally that amount of cash to the penny into Joe Biden's account. And a reminder, and a very important reminder here, ladies and gentlemen, that Joe Biden doesn't need to be the guy who's receiving the checks. That money laundering can be proven and bribery can be proven through his family members. That's how the laws are structured. James Comer knows this, and that's why James Comer had this to say.
Bank records obtained by the House Committee on Oversight have revealed a $200,000 direct payment from James and Sarah Biden to Joe Biden in the form of a personal check. Here's some important context about this check we've obtained in our investigation. In 2018, James Biden received $600,000 in loans from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed and failing rural hospital operator. According to bankruptcy court documents, James Biden received these loans, quote, based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors and that he could obtain a large investment from the Middle East based on his political connections, end quote. On March 1st, 2018, AmeriCorps wired a $200,000 loan into James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business bank account. And then on the very same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check from this same personal bank account to Joe Biden. James Biden wrote this check to Joe Biden as a, quote, loan repayment.
Okay. So here's the timeline, ladies and gentlemen. In 2018, James Biden, and a reminder what was happening in 2018, Donald Trump was president, the Republicans had unified control of Congress, the Bidens never thought they would ever serve in public office again. Joe Biden was going balls to the wall. Like, everyone knew that Joe Biden had dementia. Again, we just go check Hunter Biden's own text messages to the family medical professionals. Joe Biden has dementia. That's what Hunter Biden said. So everyone knows that Joe has dementia. So you got to make sure that you pump this corpse while it's still warm, right? Of everything it's got. And so they were going absolute, like, pedal to the metal on this business, okay? So they never thought that they would ever face any scrutiny on this. They never thought Republicans would ever investigate this. So here we go. Here's the timeline. James Biden receives $600,000 in loans from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed and failing rural hospital operator. According to bankruptcy court documents, James Biden received these loans based upon representations that his last name Biden could open doors. In 2018, AmeriCorps wired $200,000 to James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business account. And the same day, James Biden wrote a $200,000 check to Joe. James Biden wrote this check as a loan repayment, but that doesn't make any sense. James Biden sent it to Joe Biden. Even if this was a personal loan repayment, it's still troubling because why is Joe Biden paying off the shady dealings of his brother? So there's your direct connection, in case you needed any, obviously, further evidence here. James Comer saying, we're just getting started. Watch.
What we're doing is we're tracing the money, Sean. It's not just that they got a $200,000 payment, that Joe Biden received a $200,000 payment. It's where the money came from. And the money came from Jim Biden, where he influence peddled to a company in the United States that he went and said that he could help through his brother's contacts get capital from the Middle East. So he convinced this company to give him $600,000, and they did it in increments. The last increment was $200,000. That $200,000 then went to Jim Biden's personal account, and it was a loan, according to the way Jim Biden deposited. And then he wrote on the same day a check to Joe Biden for a loan repayment. Now, they're playing the loan card a lot. Remember the $250,000 wire that we identified 3 weeks ago that came from China to Hunter Biden that was addressed to Joe Biden's house? The White House said that was a loan, too. And, Sean, what you're going to be hearing out of the White House over the next few weeks is loan, loan, loan. And look, even if Joe Biden did give his brother a loan, which I don't believe he did, the fact that his brother defrauded a company that is now bankrupt and all the creditors lost all their money that they invested in this or loaned to this healthcare company, but Joe Biden got $200,000 from it before they went bankrupt, all because Jim Biden was selling the brand, was selling the Biden name, and convinced people to pay him money in exchange for favors from Joe Biden.
I mean, it seems like even though there is such an enormous amount of international fraud going on, right? And that seems to be the things that we focus on the very most, Russia and Ukraine and China. Oh, what parts of the world are melting down right now? Russia, Ukraine, China. What parts of the world are going totally tits up? The parts of the world where the Bidens started to meddle and had biolabs and had business and were trying to take over. These are the parts of the world that are in flames right now. And what other part of the world? Oh, Israel and the Mideast. The Mideast, of course, is collapsing at a very quick clip. Now, while there are levels of nuance there, it's worth noting that in the Middle East, and we don't talk about this as much because there's more meat on the bones to China and Ukraine, the Biden family was begging hat and hand to Middle Eastern dictatorships to get in on the family business. And what you see, of course, in Joe Biden's reception when he goes to the Middle East is that these people are aware that he is a corrupt criminal crime syndicate leader. They know. Like, game represent game. This is why they treat him with such disrespect, is because Joe Biden's groveling, money-grubbing, filthy family have gone into the coffers of Qatar, have gone into the coffers of the UAE and Saudi Arabia, begging for cash. And who is the one doing it? Who is holding the hat? Joe Biden's brother. Watch.
Wouldn't you have to have a record of when you gave the loan, and wouldn't that bank record exist as well? Have you been able to find that?
We just announced the check today, and we've asked the White House to produce documentation of the loan, the terms of the loan. And we also want to know from Joe Biden, was he aware when he took that $200,000 that it came from a company his brother defrauded in the name of Joe Biden, that Joe Biden could come in and save the day through his contacts in the Middle East, Sean? That's where this influence peddling scheme came. We've talked about China, Romania, Russia, Ukraine. Now we're talking about the Middle East. We've talked about Hunter Biden. Now we're on to Jim Biden. We've been following the money. We're going to continue to follow the money. But more and more suspicious activity is popping up everywhere to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars from the Biden family. And now we have evidence that Joe Biden benefited directly from this. If his brother hadn't defrauded that company through the influence peddling scheme, he never could have paid Joe Biden back that $200,000, assuming Joe Biden really loaned him $200,000, which I'm not convinced that he did.
Oh, well, this is interesting. Again, we study language here. We are well versed in the language of Washington, D.C. I lived there. I worked there. I wrote there. I had multiple friends that are inside of these little offices that write these little scripts for these people to go out and parrot and muppet. None of these people are in charge. Nobody really in charge. Like, it's every organized government in the world is a criminal cartel on some level, and every politician is just really an actor, a public face of the cartel. With Joe Biden, it's just you've blended the layers a little bit close. Like it's just it's a little too much on the surface right, with Joe Biden because he's been around for so long, and he was around in a time when this stuff was far more egregious and when people weren't as sophisticated as like the Clintons and the Obama cartels. And so what you're seeing is like, the Jacques Clouseau, like the dumbasses who put together the Biden crime family. They just are so stupid. They just never thought they'd ever be caught, and they never thought anyone would ever look into this stuff. That's what you're seeing. And so the unraveling is pretty interesting. What you saw there with Comer is saying, wait a second, direct payments. That's what they've been begging for. So they've changed their tune. All right? So it's amazing. Talk about the slippery slope here. They said that Joe Biden never made any money. The Biden family never made any money. Joe Biden, during the debate, my son hasn't made 1 red cent in China. They've had to change all that. They've had to change that Joe Biden was part of the crime family. They've had to change Hunter Biden was living with him. Classified document. They've had to backtrack on everything. And with the cliff that they're up against right now is the direct evidence, okay? So there's plenty of crime evidence against the Bidens, all right? There's plenty of Hunter Biden crime evidence, plenty of crime evidence against the Biden. Hunter Biden's actually literally being charged on various crimes, and we'll see what happens with the tax charges. So they can't use that. Now they have balkanized around Joe. And you see clips like this. Dan Goldman, who's Joe Biden's personal attorney in Congress, going and talking to Joe Biden's spokesperson, Jen Psaki, this weekend.
There is no evidence, none whatsoever, and I don't care how much they say otherwise. I have looked at it. There is no direct evidence that President Biden was involved in any way, shape, or form in Hunter Biden's business dealings.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny what news is in America? Oh, like at the very least, I've never taken a paycheck from any of these people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like Donald Trump. I consider myself a Republican, like a conservative, freedom, libertarian. Like, at least these people don't pay me, right? Like, I don't take money from them. Like, what is this? This is what's considered news on the left. Joe Biden's literal spokesperson, the person who took direct money from Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, Circle Back, Peppermint Patty, and Chucky, and whatever else we called her. I miss the old nicknames. I miss the Jen Psaki days. I really do. Cringe Jean Pierre. It's sad. It's like Cringe Jean Pierre is like just laughing at like a tragic accident on the side of the road. It's gallows humor, okay? Jen Psaki took money from Joe Biden, was his literal mouthpiece, the mouthpiece of Joe Biden, immediately directly into a show on MSNBC. Dan Goldman, a trust fund baby who has a fortune, was born into insane cash money, rich people money, the same like structures of white supremacy and structures of institutional cash and power. Dan Goldman literally representing an icon of what the modern left hates, acting as Joe Biden's lawyer, the two of them talking to each other, okay, about Joe Biden, and then using this very special legalese, this very special language, the language of no direct payments, because Dan Goldman knows what's coming. Dan Goldman knows there's going to be a slew of people, once Congress gets its act together and gets a swift kick in the ass, there's going to be a monstrous group of Joe Biden business associates. I know this for a fact because I speak with all these people. They're going to be bringing in Tony Bobulinski. They're going to be bringing in Devin Archer. They're going to be bringing in the people with the testimonies to actually put the crime family directly into the ground. You're going to have your direct evidence. And now that talking point has actually been blown sky high anyway because we have the check. You can see the check. Now the direct evidence talking point has been completely immolated and atomized because we have the direct evidence and it's going to get worse. Mark my words. Can't tell you what I know. It's going to get much worse. Bad, bad, bad for Joe Biden. Boy, he better hope World War III pops off because he's going to need a different news cycle.